Hi, my name is Aidan Heaney. I'm the head men's soccer coach at UNCW, a Division I university in North Carolina. There are three distinct entities. The NCAA is the oldest and largest organization, followed by the NAIA, which is made up of a lot of four-year schools that are typically smaller schools. Division I of the NCAA basically is made up of Division I, Division II, and Division III, and I can talk a little bit about those categories in a second. And then the NJCAA is the junior college organization, which consists of community colleges, two-year schools. So essentially those three separate entities and three separate organizations, with the NCAA being the largest and oldest. It's very hard for foreign students to know how their talent level translates. I would first of all have them start off by making sure that the academic fit is first and foremost the one thing where they fit into the parameters of the schools. It's no good looking if you have a 900 SAT that you're going to look at some schools where academically you don't even fit. So soccer or sports won't even be part of the equation. It's very difficult to get admitted. You have to have a certain level of education and GPA and SAT score to get admitted. But as far as the levels, being realistic as far as where they play at home, in their home countries and their home teams, if they're playing at a very, very high level, then they need to consider Division I universities, because that may translate. If they're just kind of more of a recreation type player, or they play on a decent level in their country, then they should be looking maybe at Division II and Division III. Let me be clear on the distinctions between NCAA, because that's the categorization that we are in as a university. For Division I, it consists of typically larger schools with better facilities. There's typically more funding for those Division I schools. Division II is the distinction there is it's still four-year schools. There's still athletic scholarships available, but they're usually smaller in size, those universities. The Division III level is for, again, smaller four-year schools, but they do not offer athletic scholarships, and they can provide some academic help to encourage players or student athletes to attend their universities. I think it's important that, again, doing some research with the internet. There's a lot of information out there. Making sure that they send a resume and a cover letter that's grammatically correct with good spelling, that they've got the coach's name right, that they provide provide some academic background for the student to let the university know where they are as a student, and then being able to provide maybe some highlights, some clips of them playing, so we can get a little taste of what their ability is like as a soccer player or in their particular sport. And that may end up resulting in possibly a university member or a coach heading over to watch them play in their own environment. Some of the don'ts, just sending blanket emails to everybody where it's not blank copied. So you send out to 200 coaches, and the coach sees exactly who they send it to. And, not making it general, try and be specific. Maybe find out, Coach, I've been impressed with University X's record in the past season. I saw you had some great wins against Team X, Y, and Z. So then it tells the coach that they've actually done some research on the university. And I think that's helpful to you want to try and set yourself apart from all the hundreds of emails that coaches get on a daily basis. The communication, the lines of communication, if you send emails, you typically should get a response from either the head coach or an assistant coach. One of the things to be aware of is that juniors and seniors in high school, the coaches can respond to them via email or via phone. If you're a sophomore or a freshman, you're just starting the process, or a freshman, sophomore in high school, the NCAA rules for our division do not allow you to respond to those, other than just saying a general, got your email, and maybe sending them some camp information. So just be aware of that. But the lines of communication, and students are very welcome to. They can follow up with a phone call and maybe talk to a member of staff, a member of the coaching staff if they have questions, and maybe start that dialogue so they get to know you over the phone as well as through an email or a letter. At the Division 1 level, tryouts are not permitted. So we don't bring players on they can't go to Division 1 universities and show up and have a trial with those teams. That's not permitted by the NCAA. At the Division 2 level, you are allowed to do so. There's two types of visits that student athletes can make. There's an official visit, which is a visit that's paid for by the athletic department, and the student athlete is allowed 5 of those. And that means that they can pay for the transportation, they can pay for a hotel, and it's a maximum of 48 hours, and they can maybe pay for some food. You have to be in your senior year of high school to be able to take part in an official visit. Unofficial visits are essentially at the expense of the student athlete, and you can take as many of those as you want to. So most universities get kids who will contact them, they've shown an interest in the university, will come and visit the university and potentially have a chance to meet with a member of coaching staff if they're available to talk about their program. Usually once the process is well underway, there's a lot of dialogue between the coaching staff and the player or the student athlete, and following that, when it takes a step further and admissions gets involved and they're applying to the university, compliance is involved too, to make sure that they've taken the correct core courses that will be required by the institution and the NCAA, so they're going to be eligible to play, and that's very important. For athletes, whether you're a domestic athlete or whether you're an international athlete, everyone has to register with the eligibility centre, and that's where all the transcripts and all test scores are sent, and they actually determine whether a player is amateur or whether they have the correct courses to be able to play at the certain levels: Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. Essentially, players, again I'm talking about soccer specifically, but it's the same for any sport. Amateurism, the system is an amateur system, so we don't take former professionals or players who are signed with an agent or signed with a professional team and have earned bonus money, things of that nature, which rules them as a fully fledged professional. We are allowed, and the NCAA does allow, players who have come up through the academy systems of maybe professional clubs to participate in college athletics. They just can't have received anything over and above necessary, actual and necessary expenses. So there can be some kids who have been in a club, received some form of compensation, but it was more from an expense standpoint, and they did receive that, but they weren't getting paid per win or things of that nature, and certainly can't have signed with an agent. I think when people think of college athletics in the States, they think of American football, they think of basketball, where all those universities provide full scholarships for their athletes. In the Olympic sports, such as soccer, for example, men's soccer are allowed 9.9 scholarships, which, if you do the math, we have a squad, just to use mine as an example, our university as an example, of 26, 27 players. So if you do the mathematics, we have some players who are on zero money, we have some players who are on partial scholarships, and we do have some who are on full. So it just depends on the university and their philosophy. For women's sport or women's soccer, I believe it's 14 or 15 is the number of total scholarships they're allowed. So you can divide those up which way you like. If you want to have 15 players on full scholarships, that's entirely up to you. But mostly there's a combination of partial and full scholarships. Typically all scholarship players are recruited because you're investing in someone that you've spent a lot of time doing your homework, not only from a playing standpoint, we're trying to find out about their character, their academic background, having a relationship. If you're going to invest in someone to come in to your college and university to play, you want to make sure you have the right level of talent. So yes, they're typically recruited. There are possibilities for some kids to make a roster or join a team as a walk-on, where they basically, once they're admitted to the university, they get there, they try out for the team and actually make the team, and initially probably not going to be on any kind of funding, but if they do well, there's a chance to be rewarded later on. You do have some kids as well who are recruited walk-ons, or maybe some kids you've actually spent time in the recruiting process trying to encourage them to come to university, but they end up coming for no money and essentially are a recruited walk-on. They still have the same experience as any player, whether they're on money or not. It just means they're just not getting compensated from an athletic standpoint. SAT scores or standardized test scores are required, whether that be the SAT or the ACT, but a test score is required to be able to compete at the university level. And for foreign students too, if they're coming from a non-English speaking country, they have to require to take the test, a TOEFL test, which stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. Zero. As I said, if someone, and again, if we're talking about the same type of agents that I think we're talking about, when it comes to soccer players, for sure, if they've registered or signed with an agent, they're automatically considered to be professional. There are recruiting agencies out there now where kids can sign up, and basically the recruiting agency will promote the player, send information to different universities, help with the process. But that's not something that the universities in the States pay that agency for. It has to be paid for by the student. So it's basically a service provided for the students, and they have to pay for that service rather than from the university. But we do have working relationships with some of those foreign agencies. As far as the time frame, it's very important. I think that definitely that's junior year. Kids are reaching out to universities, they're sending their information, because typically for the Division I level for sure, they're looking a year ahead. So it's not to say that there won't be opportunities if you're later in the process and you're reaching out when you're in your senior year or going into your senior year of high school. But if you reach out earlier, the earlier the better. In your junior year, because that's when coaches they've got more money available, or they know what they have that's opening up for that senior year that they're going to graduate. So it just gives you more opportunity of maybe being able to gain a scholarship and be kind of attractive to more universities. So I think the timetable is very, very important. Don't leave it the last second, because again, you're going to have to take standardized tests. You're going to have to take some steps along the way, and that requires being prepared and doing those things early in the process. In closing, I think this process can be, there's a lot of steps to get through for an international player to make it over to the States. There's a lot of paperwork required, but my strong advice would be to make sure you do a lot of research on the different universities that you're considering going to. There are great opportunities over here in the States. I'm a recipient myself of coming from England to get a degree in the States and then play on professionally afterwards and continue a life. So, and with the internet, you can do a lot of research and figure out what the coach is like. Figure out what the rosters are like. Figure out who's graduating, what are their needs. But it's very helpful if you can provide some film, because it's very difficult for coaches to fly overseas and see everybody that they might want to see, and then also it's very expensive if players want to try and come over to the States and visit schools and that sort of thing. So, but it's possible to do. It's very, with the advent of DVDs and highlights, and it's very, it's a very much more transparent process.